the vocal fatigue, trying to sing 3 nights a week, hairdress 5 days a week. Where was my vocal rest, Daniel? There was none.
There is none.
Sound check. Check 1, check 2.
I mean, obviously there would have been a bit of a slow burn for you in the deterioration of your voice. What happened?
Well, it was, and this is common with what I get spoken to from a lot of professional singers. I didn't know if my voice was going to be okay on the night.
Yeah.
Was it going to be all right tonight? I never really knew.
Yes.
And that was sort of the first thing, was how's it going to be? I'd wake up in the morning. I couldn't really speak in the mornings. Did it come good by the afternoons? And that sort of got a little bit later in the day and a little bit later in the day. And then all of a sudden, I started losing my upper register. So some of my really high notes were just air. Some of my lower notes were starting to get quite crunchy. I'm thinking, oh gosh, this isn't bad. And some days I'd get on stage and I'd just, some of the boys in the band, thank goodness, had incredible voices, and they'd just back me up, and I'd just mime just to get through the night because I had no choice. So that sort of was maybe what you call the slow burn, which I like that. That was a great way of putting it. And then all of a sudden, the husky voice, people would say to me, oh, I love your husky voice. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. So you'd almost speak on that crunchy voice, like speak on that fry, because it was your sound.
Yeah.
And so you get in this awful loop of speaking on that sound. There was no freeness, and then the tightness started. So then I'd have to get louder to get higher. All the things that, we hear as teachers and go, you just get so worried because not only do I know through education, I also know through experience. And so that's heartbreaking to hear people say that, because I think, oh, if you don't listen to me, I know where you're heading.
Yes.
And I don't want that for anyone.
Yeah.
And then I was on stage, and it was an incredibly big night at this nightclub. It's 3 stories. It was just absolutely packed. And of course, you get on that real excited thing. And so I just kept singing, and I knew I was in trouble. And then all of a sudden, and they say you can't do this, but I swear I did. I was singing, and then I went, and I can swear that I tasted blood. Like I said, they say that that's rare, but it was a hemorrhage. Yeah. And so that was devastating, because not only was it my income, everything. Like, I am my voice. I just bought this shirt the other day that said, what did it say? Something like, I don't always sing. Oh, yeah, wait, hang on. Yeah, yes, I do. But that's just me, I'm always teaching singing, studying singing, mentoring singers.
Yes.
It is me. It is everything about me. I love it. It's just everything. And so to have that taken away from me was like, I had to write. Mum wouldn't let me on the phone, even though I was in my 20s. I had no income. I couldn't talk.
At the time, I dare say you didn't know it was a hemorrhage. Mind you, everything you just described is maybe not the tasting of blood, though I've had students who have told me they've spotted blood onto a hanky or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but that instantaneous, almost like a pop or a snap and suddenly you have no voice, classic hemorrhage. How did you then go about discovering that that's what you had happen?
Well, that really didn't get diagnosed until ages afterwards. It was vocal rest. So it was really speech pathology, and it wasn't diagnosed until early 2000s, where I finally got, in the con, they had a look and they're like, you've had a hemorrhage.
There's some scarring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, I had struggled ever since, really, with my voice. It sounded terrible. It was awful. It was hard to get it going.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I didn't I didn't really know too much, but the speech pathology was fantastic.
Yeah.
Started getting me organised in my head about what I was doing that was incorrect in vocal health. Then a big reason then too was reflux. I had a lot of reflux. And that's like, I've become like a slave to my voice. So many things I don't have in my diet anymore.
Yes.
So many.
Yes.
You know what? It worked.
Yes.
And that makes me happy.
Tell me, how long did it take for your voice to then, recover to the point where you were gigging again? And this is after the therapy with the hemorrhage.
Yeah, I had 6 weeks off, which really isn't a long time. And then, six weeks until I started traveling again. Yeah, it's sort of a bit of a blur. And, to be honest, I don't really think I ever got out of that horrible spiral because I still really, wasn't really looking after myself properly and taking it really seriously. It took a long time, and I think I just got through by, I was having a good night, or I wasn't having a good night, or I'd still be really husky. My voice was still very limited.
Yeah.
But I made it work, I don't really know how. I did try hard with the speech, pathologist, but it wasn't until I found a contemporary voice teacher that it also went, oh.
Did you find that from the hemorrhage forward, did you find that you were then singing with what you would identify as a compromised voice, a voice that was less than?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. There were songs I wouldn't touch because they were just too pretty, that I would have to lengthen far too much to get that pretty sound. There's no way I'd do it. I always remember our lead singer, "Oh, why do you have to holler? Stop hollering." I was like, well, I don't have a choice. That's it. That's kind of how it is. But thank goodness it's not like that anymore.
It is something that I think everyone who's watching can really take a lesson from, is that the answer to getting your voice going, if it's tired or you've been sick, is not to push harder.
No.
It
I
is.
can vouch for that.
It is the road to sure disaster. It really is. And even if you feel like you survived the risk, if you have to front up and do that, it's just going to get slow. It's going to snowball over time, and the slow burn eventually catches up with us, doesn't it?
It sure does.
It wouldn't have only been about reducing your air pressure, though that would have been a big part of your recovery. What was some other things about your vocal function that you had to change in order to have a voice that was once again, relatively usable and it had full scope?
Yeah, well, the biggest thing for me is that I needed time off. I had to reduce the swelling. I had to make sure that the hardest thing I think for me at the beginning was that I was being told how to do all these different things and that, I should be able to do this and that with my voice. But I couldn't lengthen my vocal folds and get closure. I just couldn't. So unless I had a heap of subglottic air pressure and thick folds, I couldn't make much of a sound. I could stretch it to this far, but I couldn't let anything else happen because it would just go, I'd get all these awful, just yucky. It was awful. So I think that was the hardest part, was to trust the process. And to trust the process, I had to get an instrument that could align with what I was being taught, because I didn't have that luxury like the other people did. I went back and I read what that young girl had written in this big journal, and she had no trust in the fact that she would ever be able to do that, because the minute I would try and get a higher sound in a lighter tone, it was a disaster. It would just die. There'd be no sound.
Yes.
So that was the biggest thing. So I think that's something that I really try really hard to let people know is once it does get past a certain point, rest is all you have left. And if you're a full-time musician, that's just not on the cards. Like how do you do that? But at the end of the day, your body will make you have rest because you will have nothing. You will get nodules and then you will have all of those things.
I have come to think that one of the most undervalued aspects of a singer's life is vocal rest. You know, I think there are so many challenges that could be averted.
Absolutely.
If only the singer had have had opportunity to rest. What do you say to working singers now in finding that opportunity for rest?
Definitely, well, you know, from the time that they hit the gig to making sure that they're not out there talking, because obviously that's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And then when they're finished, that they're not back out there talking, and that they get that rest. You know, sleep, it's not a luxury. It's part of the fuel that makes us be able to continue as singers. And so if we need that little bit of extra sleep, you know, take it, because that's a place then when you're not talking to anyone. And I think too, because, you know, we're communicating, you know, we've got families to organise, we've got jobs, you know, we're talking, you know, if you're just purely gigging, you're going to be talking to management. So again, you're using your instruments. So there has to be a certain part of every single day where there is no speaking and that you do get your solid sleep. You really got to be very mindful of all of that because you've got to rest your body. But it's just difficult because that part of our body runs everything, doesn't it? It's difficult because it's not just our instrument, it's our, you know, everything, isn't it?
It is. We're not robots. You know, we are a finite biological being, and it is so important that we're very unique individuals within a band scenario. You know, I think instrumentalists often can learn to look after themselves better also, but at least for them, you know, if they're sick, they can still play often. It might not be a fun gig, but they can still do it and not do any damage to themselves. You know, for us, what we ate the night before, it can have a big impact on what our voice does the next morning and into the next night. And, you know, the time of year that it is, the time of month that it is for some women. So, you know, these are big challenges.